What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Table Talk. We are back at the Lucius household for the third or fourth time in our podcast journey. But since we just finished releasing the disc explanation series that we had that you can find on YouTube and Spotify,
also known as Description.
I thought that was cool, by the way.
Thank you.
Hey.
Since we just finished releasing all four of those, which I highly recommend checking out if you have the time, we thought it would be fun to get back together and not only reveal our letters, because we made sure to not do that during any of the episodes that we recorded, but I think it would be fun to just have some conversation about our letters, what they say about us, and how we use our behavioral styles in our marriages and in the workplace, and just have a good conversation about it. And I thought, why not have a conversation with the two people who know more about this than anyone else I know? So, Tony and Amy, thank you again for having us.
Thank you. Glad to be here. This is going to be interesting. We didn't rehearse this, so this is completely freelance. We're going to see where different behaviors take us.
As he gave us 5 sheets of paper with notes on them, it's about as unrehearsed as you can get. But they don't know any of the questions that I actually wrote down. Nothing too crazy, but why don't we just go ahead and get it started with, what are your letters?
Well, Amy, you start. How about you?
Well, I'm a letter C, and so I would be considered, if you look at the colors, blue.
Blue.
For those not watching, we did color coordinate and
Based
where,
on our letters.
based on our letters, we are wearing the colors in which we scored on the test.
Did I spoil anything on your questions by doing that?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spoil
Well,
that.
but for those that aren't watching, you still need to say the letter.
Yeah.
I'm a C.
Which is compliant.
Yes.
Okay. That was the one we just released.
Yep.
I'm a D, which is dominant, which is red.
Bad guy, just an all-around bulldog.
Typically
mean,
so, yes.
Mean
Typically
guy.
so.
My highest was I for influencer.
And yellow.
And
is
yellow.
the color. Yep. And I also am a D, dominant. So I'm wearing red. But I will say, the conversations that Tony and I have had, we are both Ds, but we operate fairly differently in the way we handle situations and approach things. We can maybe get into that a little bit later, but
Sure.
it can, I think we're a great example of how you can be the same letter and come across different ways and experience it differently, but have the same core kind of things. Would
Sure.
you agree with that?
Absolutely, I think so. So when there's 4 behavior styles, the other 3 blend into whatever primary you are. So we're basically primary 2 types of behavior styles, all of us. So I'm a D-I. I'm a D yellow, basically. I'm a red yellow.
And I'm a blue-green, so I'm the steady, the S, which is the second style.
And then I am influencer steady, so yellow blue,
Green.
yellow green.
Yeah. And then I am also DI, dominant influencer, red, yellow.
And if this already sounds confusing to you, I highly recommend going and watching the 4 videos that we released on these, because the amount of acronyms we will be using, I assume, throughout the rest of this episode will be explained very well if you have better context.
Yes.
I think so as well. Good point,
Thank
Walker.
you. So, my first actual question, just leading into things, when you first got your results back from the DISC assessment, and you got D, and you got C, and I got I and D, what did you initially think about your results? upset, confused, relieved,
Excited?
excited? What, like, do you remember how you felt about seeing the results of your test?
I do. I do like it was yesterday. But I'm going to yield to Amy. If you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Or did y'all want to go first?
Please.
Go ahead.
No, I'm serious. I
No,
will
you
yield.
can go ahead.
I really realized that I was not a very likable person.
Mm.
You know, it was hard. I mean, people who liked me had to really work at it. And the things that I learned, that how people perceive me, probably hit home more, because it couldn't be farther from the truth of what my passion and my heart said. And because as if you watched any of the other sessions, the D can be a bully, can be rude. This is perceptions. And for that realization transformed the way I thought about myself, but also changed my behavior style. Because that's the last thing on a D's mindset, is to be that, and to let somebody think that we intend to be that way. I thought, oh, that's horrible for me. And there were just people that I thought about in my past life. I thought, I've got to go back and talk to these people. And then when we look at our marriage, and I'm thinking, golly, this explains so much in how this can cause some conflict between Amy and me. And it did. I mean, honestly, we're keeping this thing pretty raw tonight. And so that I mean, you know, there's some good traits as well. I mean, I'm a dreamer, man. I'll think, if let's do this and let's do that, and well, okay, why not? If it fails, it fails. But I'm not scared to dream. So there's some good sides to that. But that's my first knee jerk,
Yeah.
Walker. I didn't like the news I got.
Yeah. What about you, Amy?
Well, I had taken it earlier. I probably took it before he did, as part of a leadership class that I was in, and it was eye-opening. It kind of explained what I did as far as professionally, what I had gravitated toward in my educational career, some of my job responsibilities, and then it explained all the lists. Like, I made a menu, what we were going to eat all week, and I planned everything and had lists. And for those that are blue, they're usually the ones, or the compliance, they're usually the ones who really don't like and want to be a different color for whatever reason. And so they
Is that more because of the word itself? Like, if someone told me that I looked like a compliant person, I don't think I would like that idea.
Well, yes, and we're gonna release another video, like, of an elevator scene, and when you watch the person that is the compliant in the elevator scene, you're like, that is not me. And so I think it's just the inference of the word and the connotation of that. And because blues are perfectionists, we're our own worst critics. And so when you're looking at being a blue, you're already critiquing yourself on, oh, I wish I could be spontaneous, or oh, I wish I could be outgoing in the life of the party. But you're not going to be. So you have to embrace your good parts, and you have to just say, I'm going to work on it. And so then when I took it several years later, thought, I've changed, I've learned to adapt. It was stronger than ever.
Yeah.
So you are who you are. You just embrace it, and you learn, and you adapt.
And then when you've got a big red bully that's doubling down on the inner critique, then that's tough. And you actually gave us a sheet here that shows, like, the comfort zones of how different letters typically interact in, like, a Venn diagram. And just to be honest, like, y'all's letters have a very not very slim, but a slim comfort zone. Like,
Absolutely.
So how do y'all, this isn't just, this is just whatever. How do you find yourselves, or how early on, when you both figured out y'all's letters, how did y'all act in accordance to that Venn diagram without knowing the
So
stats?
prior to that, we, just like any other marriage, I mean, conflict exists, right?
Sure.
And we've learned through the years, and that it's how you handle the conflict. Well, I would tell you, the first, I don't know how many, I wish I knew how many years, but for 10 years, it was like we had no clue of this. I just despised some of the things that my wife did. And I think rightfully so. You despise some of my styles that I did. And it created conflict. And that's why I think this is so powerful, guys, is that how many people just give up in their marriage because they're like, we can't do this. And we're faithful to say, hey, God wants us to win. God wants our marriage to win. And he designed us, totally different, but that's the dynamics we bring to the table. So instead of me hating her style and her hating my style, we've learned to embrace them and go, okay, when we're going to plan a trip, I'm going to dream it, she's going to plan it.
Yeah.
When before, I would dream it and try to plan it, and it just didn't work that way.
He actually gave me a birthday present one time, and the plane left 2 days after I opened the present. So I didn't really have time to pack, and it really like stressed me out.
Oh, you needed more preparation time.
Yes, so yeah.
And this teaches you
And
that.
I mean, he tried to be spontaneous and fun, but it was very stressful
So
for my blues.
a real situation, we were going to go to the beach, had planned vacation,
You're telling
had the
the
condo
story.
booked. Pardon me?
You're telling the story.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now he's got to.
We're going to keep it real. Did y'all understand? Amy didn't want me to tell you the story, so I'm not going to tell. No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, this is all on me. So I'm red is spontaneous. Let's do it.
Well, we
Why
had the
not?
condo, we had the week booked,
Yeah,
but you
so-
wanted to leave early.
So I said, let's leave a couple of days early, or a day early. We'll just drive down. And she says, here's a valid question that a blue would ask, and my wife, Amy, is a blue. She says, do you already have us a hotel? And I said, oh, no, don't worry about it. Let's just go.
Wrong answer.
Wrong answer. So we drive
Our son was with us.
Yeah, our son was, he was very young. So we drove, those of you who know, we drove all the way to Orange Beach, Alabama.
I actually got to Foley.
Yeah, got to Foley, and we have not found a hotel.
How far is
I
that?
9 hours.
So we looked at 22 hotels, I think it was, and ended up backtracking 2 hours until we found a hotel room. Now,
They were all full.
here's the deal. My red
Wow.
style is being spontaneous. It'll all work out and everything's cool. She's over there stressed out. Her anxiety's up, and she's like, well, I told you that we should plan something.
It's 11 o'clock at night. We're all tired.
And then we wake up
Got a
where
small child.
we wake up and look where we stayed, and it was like, oh my gosh, did we really do this? So we paint this picture saying this is that's marriage conflict. And it was like I was wrong, she was right, but how many times would a red give in and say, no, I didn't. I bullied her way through that and said, let's just go to Gulf Shores and we'll find a hotel, But that could be a major argument and could have run the whole week.
And that's both your natural behavioral styles.
Yeah.
So that's not even adaptive, like when you go into a stressful situation. That's waking up out of bed and just naturally, having to work through two, quote, opposing like behavioral styles that kind of clash more often than others.
Yeah.
But look at you now.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Daily prayer. Daily prayer. God's grace is good.
it's fun, I will tell you. It is fun. But I will tell you on the other hand, a D and a C, a blue and a red can be highly productive. When you find that sweet zone, we can accomplish some pretty cool things.
And y'all get to accomplish really cool things together. Like y'all, work together with disc presentations and things like that. And that probably would have never been, obviously it's not possible because you now do disc, but it wouldn't have been possible without learning that about yourselves.
Well, yeah, exactly. So we had a couple last week that came to us, and they, after watching some of these podcasts, and they said, this explains everything. They had they both took the assessment, and they come back and said, that makes perfect sense. That's why my spouse does that, and this is why I do that. I don't feel bad. This is what this lady said. She said, I don't feel bad about who I am anymore.
Wow.
Because that's my natural. She said, but now I understand him too. Now that's where marriage matters, is really getting into, we're not trying to sell disc. We're trying to sell the concept of that God designed us differently and alike. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
You know, and how does that impact marriage? Because again, the world doesn't care if marriages win, but
Yeah.
God does.
Yeah.
And God wants every one of our marriages to win and do ministry and leave a legacy.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear about from Ashlyn and Walker about y'all kind of early in and how your letters and
Yeah.
has
So,
impacted you.
Ash, when you found out your true identity in your behavior, what were you thinking?
Oh, gracious. So I mistested the first time and scored C, compliant. And now that we know that I truly am a D, we can laugh very hard because I am not a C in any really way, shape, or form.
No.
But when I found out that my behavioral style leaned more towards dominant, red, at first I was like, I'm not going to lie, a little embarrassed, like, because I didn't realize that that's like how I might have come across even to you, like in our marriage. And like, I feel like I have learned to tame it over the years. And I don't know if that's being a woman, if that looks differently sometimes, but I tame it everywhere but the home.
That's
and
right.
So because,
That's right.
but I tame it everywhere else except for at home because I feel safe in our home together. But sometimes that, even though I feel safe, I sometimes come across a little too aggressive or a little too, the word on here, under extreme pressure and stress, it's abrasive and controlling. And I was a little embarrassed by that because I was like, I don't want to be known as controlling or abrasive or things like that. But then on the, like, how I usually see myself, there is like assertive, confident, positive, winner. Pioneering is like looking for the bigger picture kind of stuff. And I feel like I do try to do that in all the areas of my life. And I'm learning to embrace that and to like lean into that as what the Lord has gifted me in and not shy away from that. And so I don't know, I'm still discovering what this means in my life and what it means in our marriage. But at first I was a little embarrassed, but now I'm like excited for like how God can use this, not only personally, but also together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So what about you?
Well, we took a mini portion of the test when we did our couples retreat with y'all at Shepherd of the Ozarks, and my highest was steady. But when we took the full assessment, I was, skyrocket, influencer, yellow, and then steady right behind that. So for the longest time, I've heard from other people that I'm a steady person, that I am just like pretty level-headed, like a good grounding point if someone needs to be like, I've either got to tell you a bunch of stuff or I need to like, I'm about to lay into you, like I can handle it, like no problem. Bring the problem to me. I'm a very logical person, so I like to process and do those things. So I just always thought steady was just my thing. But when I answer all of these questions and really get down to the nitty gritty, it's like you are like the influencer means a lot to me because it lets me know that I do have not like command a room kind of thing, but if I do have something to say, I can get people's attention without coming across as a dominant force.
Yeah.
Like some of these where it says in healthy ways, enthusiastic, outgoing, persuasive, and optimistic. Like I can get a pretty decent sized group to at least listen to me. Whether I'm going to say the right or the wrong thing, it doesn't matter. But that has helped me in the role that I'm in at work, being able to be in a managerial style position where I can go and talk to anyone I need to seriously without them, hopefully, hey guys, if you're seeing this and this is totally wrong, just let me know. But I feel like I can talk to anyone about something very serious without making them feel really nervous about something or getting uptight as if, oh, he's really about to lay into me right now, or, oh, this is really bad news. Like, I actually see myself more as someone who can, easily, work through the problems or processes that I need to. And I see that in our marriage in the bad way, which is when things get serious,
Ooh.
I laugh so hard.
He goes
And I'm-
jokester mode.
And I'm talking when it's real serious. I cannot. It makes me want to laugh right now because I just go, in 50 years, on our
What
50th,
is this gonna matter?
on our 50th anniversary, are we going to talk about how we didn't deep clean the closet this weekend and how big of it? So, but she, Ashlyn will be completely dead serious. This is not something to be joked about, but the only thing my influencer little self-promoter in high-stress situations, I like to just go, well, how are you going to fit another hanger on that door? Where's it going to go? It'll be there next week, too. And those are the worst. So, yeah. All that to say, I believe that is who I am. I was not expecting to receive, a high dominant,
No.
score. So I like mine. I like mine.
Well,
Better than being a dominant or compliant.
Hey, thanks. But when we travel and do workshops, because when people find out what I did before I retired, they and we mask and we adapt, they guess totally different.
and we work really hard
To
at
mask
adapting.
that. Yeah.
And we always love it. I always get excited because very rarely does anybody pick me as a D, but they pick her as the D. And I love it because for two parts, I'm a winner. So my
He
whole
likes to trick
objective,
'em.
my whole objective was to
To trick
adapt.
'em.
But the second part was it was telling me that okay, you are adapting. Remember, I don't like some of my negative behavior styles. So, but I'm gonna brag on this guy right here. Okay, so when we started putting this whole thing together, and we started praying, and God started revealing us this marriage matters thing. Okay, he and Ashlyn were co-host of an event at our church, and Walker, I known Walker. He got up on the stage and just captivated people.
He commanded
He
the room.
commanded the room, but not in a not the way I would as a red. He did it as an influencer, the true term of that. And he led people, navigated them from an introduction down through this event. And I come home and told Amy that night, I said, Walker's it.
If I remember correctly, it was actually a beard contest that
Yeah.
he was emceeing.
That's right. Who better?
He won't remember what it was.
So we didn't co-host. We did separate things at the
Okay.
church. But I just had to say that it was a beard contest because, look at this luscious
Right.
beard.
That's right.
But these characteristics are real. And for him to self-identify that and know where his strengths are and how that y'all compared the closet and the hangers and stuff like that. We want to keep this session really, really real.
But perfect podcast hosts. There you go.
That was 2 days ago, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
That's as fresh can get.
Yeah.
It was a long discussion.
And you laughed.
Yeah, I'm laughing now.
Yeah.
Even then, I wasn't. I didn't laugh as much, but I did a couple times, and that was not.
Which we learned something through that, actually. So, if we're talking about how this impacts marriage, we learned something because I ended up bringing up an argument, but I was making it about the messy closet. And after a while, after he laughed, and after we I literally sat down on the floor of our closet.
Part of my laugh was saying, I think what you're about to get to, which I just said, in the middle of laughing, she hit me with a, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "This has nothing to do with a messy closet."
Yeah, he was like, and I needed the humor, but he said this has nothing to do with the closet, and he was laughing, and I realized, I was like, he's so right though. Like, it had nothing to do with the closet. There were so many things that were adding up to that, but we learned that I have tried to bring things to the table multiple times, a little bit abrasively or controlling or things like that, and after a while I got tired of doing that. And so I don't know if that's like an adaptive that took over in that moment, but I stopped being so like but then I bottled things up. And so then by the time the closet situation happened, it wasn't the closet, it was all of these other things that had piled up. And then I was like, can you just listen for a second? I need you to listen to me onto what this is actually about. And he did listen, but I don't know. So we're learning that I can bring things to the table as a dominant and want to solve things, and that's okay. But he might not be ready yet to hear all the things, and he might need some time to really think through things logically and then actually follow through. I don't know if any of that is making sense to you guys, but
Yes, because a red wants an immediate resolution right then.
yes.
And all the other letters, they need time to think before they respond, and then they need time before there's an action. Mm-hmm. They want to weigh it out.
Yeah.
Every other one. I's, S's, and C's.
Well, I'm learning. I'm growing.
Well, I mean, we've had a couple of situations, and I'm, kind of thinking, do we share this? Do we don't share it? But okay, why not? We knew it was going to come out. So today,
This is as fresh as it can get.
Okay.
Really?
So
You're going to
I'm just going to say it was my fault because my anxiety went crazy because of something I did today. Okay. And I didn't adapt at all. And I backed her car into a fence and broke her tail light out. So you can imagine, between a marriage, call it whatever your situation is, the kids, sick, job, whatever. Today it was just, and we didn't really care about the tail light via the closet,
Yep.
but it just had a lot going on and everything was going on. I hit the tail light on the fence, busted it. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's her vehicle. And she metabolizes those kinds of things totally different than me. I'm like, it's just a tail light. We'll fix it. Okay? And my win attitude wants her to act like me and blow it off. And she's not going to do that.
Yeah.
I know that.
But what did I say? Now's not the time to talk about it.
And I listened zero. And I got not in her face, and I've never raised my voice, but I said, come on, let's talk about this. I might have done that. Okay?
Using his hand.
You
Yeah.
did. There's probably a camera.
Yeah, there
somewhere.
probably is. And I'll just tell you, the outcome of that wasn't good, but it was my fault because I pushed her out, and I knew better. I should have never demanded that. I should have given her time to metabolize that out. She may not have got vocal or excited or anything like that, but I know I just busted the taillight on her truck into some other people's property.
I heard that fence had been up for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of having words, and I didn't want to have words, and he pushed me, so then we had some words.
Not physically.
No, he pushed me emotionally.
Yeah. And I even went over there. She wouldn't get out of the car, so I went over and opened the door.
I just
and
needed
looked at
a
her and said, "What are you doing?"
I thought you were going to go talk to the person who owned the fence, so I was waiting on him to go talk.
And like I said, we're not going to avoid conflict with
Oh,
this.
but we're in the middle, and some lady walks out, and we're like, "Hi, hello," and I'm like, "She so hurt us." And then the guy drives by. He looks at me. That fence has been up since 1972. I was like, Oh, we just got to go inside and not talk about it.
Yeah.
What I really want to tell that dude is go on where you came from. Where my wife and I are about to talk, you know?
You don't need to be any part of this right here.
But 15 years ago in our marriage, that would have been a big blown up fight. I mean, a fight, not a conflict, a fight.
I probably would have locked you out of the car and just sit there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where we understand a little bit. We're probably a little over the top. Some people look at this stuff and say, we'll never be there. Guess what? It takes work. It takes time. But it makes it so much more fun and predictable because I know, Tony, you know better than that. And it made the resolve a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it just happened and we're laughing. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So that, in some of the notes that you gave us, like there was a big takeaway, and I think y'all's situation today plays that out perfectly. And what you wrote down is that we want everyone to know that our behavioral style that we see on a sheet of paper or on a graph that has a score next to it is not an excuse and not to be used as an excuse to act any way that we want. So just because Ashlyn has the dominant behavioral style as her highest score, that does not excuse her to be able to raise her voice and yell and bully and do things like that. Just like you handled today, though you didn't handle it as gracefully as you could have, truly gracefully.
That's an eye, by the way. He was
Yeah,
very nice
yeah,
about
not
that.
as,
He's being
not as
nice
gracefully,
about it.
but you didn't use, well, because I'm a dominant behavioral style,
We got to figure this out right now.
I get to get mad now, and I get to take this out on you and say, well, it doesn't matter what happened. You know, you have to take responsibility no matter what your behavioral style says about you.
He finally did after said, we don't need to talk about it. We don't need to talk about it. Finally, we went into our destination and we didn't talk about it right then. Right?
That's right. That's right. You know, and the reality is that how many marriages end because they just don't know their differences?
I'd bet a lot.
That's what breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Or they
Yeah.
don't know how to compensate and adapt because of those differences.
And they think the other one's behaving intentionally. We had a couple that told us in the last couple of weeks that we thought my spouse did that intentionally and didn't care. When it's completely opposite. You know, they were a blue and they were very extremely quiet, which comes across as I don't care.
Yeah.
Because a blue can withdraw. And that can be perceived as I don't care. It doesn't bother me. You do what you want to do. We make up that story in our mind from our behaviors of when we see someone else act a different way, and then we believe the story, and then that conflict lives on through our marriage for years or weeks or months. Call it whatever you want to, you know. So it's very serious.
So you said this like 15 years ago, the situation that happened today would have turned into a fight. Your situation just happened today and you are physically able to sit down. I mean, laughing. If it was that big of a deal, there's no way we would be laughing.
And probably even
about
be in a
this.
place to record like
Right.
this.
So 15 years ago, how long would it have taken to resolve something that happened today? Like before you know anything about behavioral styles, how long do you think it would have taken to get to a point where we could sit down, talk about it before we record, and just get to have a good old-fashioned laugh about it?
Oh, I don't know. A few days, maybe. A few days.
At least.
few days.
At least.
But
Yeah.
it'd have been real. Like that would have been real.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that'd been real. Yeah, we definitely wouldn't have spoken for 24 hours. If we did, it was very limited. Y'all know that kind of talk,
Yeah.
you know.
Only when you have to.
Yeah, only when you have
Hi,
to.
bye.
Yeah, yeah. You know, so some of the,
Who's picking up the kid? Who's
the transactional
Get the
discussion.
dog.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because if you look at the behavior style, the red is the win. What, you know, this thing has so many layers. But if you think about this with your spouse just for a moment, even if you haven't even watched
Won't you
any
say
of
D
the
too, because they may not know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
a dominant red is a winner.
When it comes to conflict.
Yeah, so they when conflict, they're gonna, if she
Have the
gets up,
last
if
word.
we have a conflict in the living room and she doesn't like what I say, she's gonna get up as a blue and she's gonna withdraw.
I'm just gonna walk away.
She's gonna go to the bedroom. And that drives a red crazy because I'm wanting to win. I'm wanting to get this done. Let's settle it and let's over with it. I think her withdrawing is weak. I'm just keeping it real. I love you, honey. But I look at that, winner looks at that
I've
as
won.
weak.
Yeah.
Well, you come in here and let's talk about this
No,
now.
I'm going away to think about what I'm gonna say.
And the faster
match
she
it.
walks away, the more I press.
Yeah.
Because I'm a winner. It doesn't mean I chose to be that. I was genetically born with that trait. And then the I, the yellow, is a natural influencer, we said, but also someone who yields. So, you know, if you two, not trying to speak for you, but typically would be that if Ashlyn's the winner, you're going to typically give in naturally and say, okay, just so that y'all can go to the movie that night.
So do you have an example about that? How I yield?
Oh, I'm thinking. Do you have one that's coming to your mind?
Not specifically, because in the moment of a disagreement or like a conversation that we're having like we did this past weekend, I'm not thinking in that moment, as the influencer behavioral style, this is how I'm just, naturally, I'm just rolling with it. And
You're laughing.
and I'm laughing and I am having a
But the yielding, I think, for you comes out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it comes out more in just wanting to get it done or move on more quickly.
Right.
Like, he's not withdrawing, like, physically, but mentally, I feel like that's the yield. That's like the, okay, well, whatever you say, just so we can be done. Whereas I'm like, we're not resolving anything. Like, we've got to keep going until we, like, it's like I can beat a dead horse. Like, and I can keep going. But you've already made up your mind that, like, you're done.
I think I've got a good way to put this. With the conversation that we were having on this past weekend, there were probably 5 or 6 points, and I actually had her number the points. I said, "What's the third thing on your list?" And she goes, "I don't have them numbered." And I said, "Then what's the 5th thing?" And I was trying to find how many things we, in the moment, how many things are we about to have to go through to get there? But if I can fix one of 5 now, then maybe I can go like, "Woo, love you, I love
so
you."
maybe, was that maybe his S coming
I was
out?
gonna say that. So, yeah, we talked at the beginning where primary and secondary. So I'm a DI. So I'm a Lucius Walker combo. Okay, that's inside me internally. But I will tell you
That
that
means I'm an
his-
Ashlyn Walker.
yeah.
That's scary.
So a green, which is what he is next, other than an I,
Steady.
yellow.
Which is
he's
mine.
steady. 68% of the world's population who does the assessment are steadies. They are resolvers.
Yeah.
They want to resolve it, and they want to resolve it as quick as they can.
So that's what was happening in that. I'm glad we kind of talked through that, because that,
Don't send us a bill.
no, because that makes total sense. I'm trying to think of a situation where you yield.
Hey, well, if you can't think of one, that's fine.
What about maybe like if you say where do you want to go eat, like at a restaurant, and you pick, do you just yield to that, or do you
Hey,
have
listen,
input?
when it comes to food in the Johnson household, you can throw behavioral styles out the window. We can find food.
But okay, here's a good example.
Okay, let's go.
So yes, no, I needed to think about it for a second. So there are times when like I want to do social engagements. Like I am like really excited about doing all these things, and like I plan out like all the exciting things I want to do with friends and with family and all this. And like I'll come to him and I'll be like, I cannot wait to tell you what I've decided that we're gonna do. Like,
yeah,
with,
that's
like,
a good way to put it. What I have decided we're going to do for the next 3 nights.
And because I'm so excited, like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait. I've like thought about all these things. It's gonna be so fun. And sometimes he'll just be like, yeah, okay, and I'll be like, why are you not excited? Like, this is so fun. We're going to have a blast. But he's like, I mean, I'm just not as excited about it as you are, but sure, like, we'll go and do X, Y, Z.
And we'll have a good time. But I'll just say, yeah, that sounds great. Like, sure. Which is not the...
It is not matching my energy. But I think that's a good example of that,
so.
of the yield. So it's more
And
social.
you're desiring a response bigger, and then that's where
like
conflict.
cartwheels of thank you so much for planning.
Wow,
Yes.
you did such a good job planning my next 3 nights after work of hanging out with friends for so long.
Do you hear that, everybody? Walker hates our friends.
No, not true.
I'll tell you a funny story. We like to go to a place, kind of, both of us enjoy it. And I was the kind, let's just go and we'll figure it out when we get there. And she was the kind, when we first got married, to make an Excel spreadsheet scheduling all those things, which drives me crazy because I'm like, why can't we just freelance? Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, when I started yielding to her and going, yes, I think that's cool, we started doing way more at this place that we love to go to, a theme park, because we scheduled everything and we were able to accomplish a lot more because we were detailed. But I resisted that for years, you know, and we would accomplish about a third of what we did when we allowed her to plan it and stuff like that. So again, Tony's wrong. Sorry, I was wrong.
It's the theme of this. It's the theme of this episode.
Yeah, that's why I think I'm a horrible person.
I told you to quit saying that today. I'm not going to pump you up anymore. I've already told you you're not. I'm not going to say it again. That's the blue coming out. I've told you once.
So I've got one more big question. So I want to know if you have any questions prepared that we haven't talked about, or anything that you want to bring up specifically. Because I've got one more question that I think really like sums up what we are here for.
I don't mind going through my notes because I want to make sure that we talk about this. You know, a couple of things I would probably say in wrap up is probably we've got these charts that we put together of natural sweet spots of the behavior styles that just naturally wake up out of bed, that just naturally see things through the same lenses, you know? And it's pretty powerful. And I wish we could go over that. I know we have some people who don't watch the videos, they listen to it over the radio, so it's kind of hard to say something about it. But I will tell you that, you know, just real quickly, because I think there's some people out there who have asked these questions after the podcast that they've listened to. And so D's versus D's, sweet spot's pretty good. So what I mean by that is that Ashlyn and I could have a pretty good conversation, but bystanders who are different kind of behavior styles might look at us and go, oh gosh, they hate each other. But it's just the way we communicate.
Well, you're direct and to the point.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, so when you think about that, then you think of a D to an I, the sweet spot's as
Big one.
as bigger than a D
Look at
to a
us
D.
go.
And then you go a D to an S, the sweet spot gets a little smaller, and then the DC is the smallest sweet spot. That relationship.
Conversation.
Yeah, conversations. That doesn't mean you're not compatible at
Yeah.
all. It's not a compatibility test. It just you see things through the same lens.
I think that is can you say that again? About it not being a compatibility?
It's not a compatibility. It's not a compatibility assessment.
It's about behaviors being predictable. So once you predict the behaviors, you can almost identify how someone's going to react under stressful situations or in conflict. And so it helps you just be able to understand, to be able to have a conversation.
Great clarification, because what we do not want anyone to think is what people who think about their horoscopes or something like, because I'm an I, based on this chart, I would never want to have a conversation or be in a relationship with someone who's an S, who's a steady person. Because that sweet spot is not big. This has nothing to do with choosing a person to be in a relationship with or
Absolutely.
choosing a spouse.
Absolutely
No,
not.
because God has that chosen for us. And a lot of times, He will give you someone that is opposite.
As opposite as could possibly be.
For
we
you
really,
guys.
we really are. If you only saw our chart, they've seen our chart. So
Is this something that we could take and put on our Facebook? Like these.
we could do that. Yeah.
Go check us out on Facebook. We've got the link in the description. We will go and put these charts up just so you can get a nice visual of these Venn diagrams and these comfort zones and sweet spots that we're talking about.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
that's great.
And Walker, you asked me to say one last comment before
Sure.
your big question, but I want to say this, and I mentioned this to them earlier, is that this is not a secular way to look at marriage. We desperately want to position God at the forefront and center of all of our marriage. And we believe this so much that our behavior style differences. Now, we may be a little over top of this. I don't apologize for it. But Ephesians 6:12 and 13 says, and I'm going to botch this up. I'm just going to say this, paraphrase it. But we don't battle against flesh and blood. Okay? Our battle is not against our flesh and blood, but it's against principalities. And then it also tells us to put on the whole armor of God. And I really believe this. You've heard me say this several times, but I believe when that scripture says put on the whole armor of God, that means protect our marriage from the goofiness that we get hung up on about our differences, and it ends up in conflict that's unresolved for years, and then we end up statistics. And I look at that from a spiritual sense, because there's an adversary out there that wants to destroy our marriage. We've maintained a focus that we're only going to talk about the victory of Jesus. We've shared some humor in how conflict comes up and it's funny and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, there's some relationships where these conflicts turn sour and they turn detrimental and cause you to be a statistic. Okay? And we just want to remain strong that victory is when we put God in the center. And this is just one of those elements in life and our behaviors. I mean, you're a therapist. You could get into this deal where you talk about genders
Yes.
all day long. That's another layer of this. We're just talking about behaviors a little bit. So we just want to bring God into the forefront of this to say, hey, we give him the praise and the glory for allowing us. Is he eliminating conflict from our life? No. No, because I still do brain dead things about backing her car into a fence and breaking it, stuff like that. So I appreciate you allowing me to share that.
Yeah.
Because that's our heart. And I know it's your heart too.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I really like when you make it a point to say like becoming a statistic, because we have had, and I'm sure that y'all have as well if we're being real, we have had disagreements and arguments and wrongdoings that if God was not directly involved in the solution or any part of restoration in those disagreements, we wouldn't like be together. And that's not coincidence that we just so happen to work through extremely difficult arguments and disagreements on our own, because I believe we know if we tried to do it all on our own, we probably wouldn't be together.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
So I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm very thankful that you brought that up, because I think we are in agreement with that, and it shows the faults in us when we don't put on that full armor of God, specifically in our marriages. So thank you for bringing that up. So my last question, wrapping all of this up, is how can we best go on in our marriages, building up and strengthening our spouses with the information that we have from DISC? How can we go forward for the next year, 5 years, 10 years with this information and build up our relationships based on what we know about our behaviors?
Well, I think once you understand your behavior style, you can control how you react and how you communicate with your spouse. And then when you understand their style, it helps with the communication, because oh wait, this is how I need to approach this, or oh wait, this is not what this is really about. That was a really good example on the closet. I mean, you know, because a lot of times the things we talk about are not what's really in our hearts. It's just the trivial things. So I think that going forward, you know, we have to stay in God's Word, and we have to ask Him to help us. But when we know how we're wired and what our characteristics are and how we're perceived, and we're cognizant of that, and then we try to adapt, because stress is really hard in everyday life and in marriages. There's just no way around it. Some days are better than others, and you have to forge together. And so when you know behaviors, I think that helps you to be able not only to communicate, but to understand and to be there on those tough days. And then always pray. I mean, I think that is the number one thing that you have to do, is say, let me say this the right way. Let me have this conversation with love and understanding.
I think that's what shortens arguments the fastest. Is I know for a fact that I've had to pray and be like, please stop me from saying what's on the forefront of my brain, because that is an instant ignition for the next 6 hours. Is like, if I just popped off and said, what you're saying is dumb, how is that going to resolve this in any way? So
I wish today in the parking lot I had time to pray before we had that conversation.
You needed to.
yeah, that's right. That's
You
right.
did too.
I'm just kidding. Hey, by the way, what you just said a while ago was absolutely beautiful. It really was. And I'm not saying that for the camera or the audience. That was just cool stuff. Seriously. Yeah, that was good. I like that. And, you know, to my part of that answer would be self-awareness. It's what she said, but I'm going to use a different word. Self-awareness. When we become self-aware, that should change what we do. Not all the time, because it's impossible to do it all the time. There's nobody that can do it all the time.
Yeah.
But just being self-aware of how I can be perceived by others, my spouse, my child, our son, my daughter-in-law, and how my witness in that doing ministry is directly impacted by that. You know, I mean, it really is. And then the other part of it, and this is going to be a silly illustration, but I'm an old basketball, baseball player, but if I try to get my spouse to love what I love and not understand, you know, like if I try to get her to do layups and she hates basketball, but I keep pushing her to do layups. You got to do a layup. You got to do a layup.
I love basketball.
But I'm just saying, if she didn't, she would eventually withdraw from that relationship
Yeah.
and make some excuse up not to do layups.
I can give you an example.
Okay.
He loves golf, and I like golf. But when I try to play with him, what does he do?
Coaches
Coach.
you.
He coaches me. So I have stopped playing golf because I don't want
So
to
she
be
withdrew.
coached. Yeah.
You know? And shame on me for trying to coach her, but I want her to get better because she gets frustrated. So she gets
Yeah.
frustrated because she doesn't hit it well. So I'm like,
Well,
I'm going to fix it. I'm
Golf
gonna
is
help.
not the sport for a blue for me
I get it.
because when you have it's a par 4 and it takes 5, that's frustrating. It should be like 4 or 3.
Uh-huh.
So that for
the
me,
perfectionist comes out
the
there.
perfectionist, yeah, that's the hard part for me.
Are you
so.
sure you're not a C?
No, that's where my winner comes out. So Walker's saying that because I get frustrated when we go and play disc golf and stuff because I can't do it, and I shut down because I'm just like, I should automatically be good at this.
That's
I
your
shouldn't
winner.
have to practice. I shouldn't have to do this. I should just naturally be amazing. And it is not like that. And so,
So you get what I'm saying.
I do get what you're saying. It's just from a different, like, motivation.
Yeah. Well, and two, remember, there's no bad behavior styles. They're all equal links in the chain in God's kingdom. But we just are all connected in different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the things brings variety to life. It brings variety to marriage. You know, we use this in our family. Our son, our daughter-in-law, we know what we are. We speak the language.
Yeah.
And it gives me such a better comprehension and self-awareness of myself. But now I know, okay, my son's this way. That's why.
Yeah.
You know, so even me knowing him helps me adapt to me and be more self-aware of me. I'll say, Tony, you got to shut your mouth, because he's a combination. I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but he's a DC. He's like what we are, but he's that internally,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother podcast. Okay.
I'm gonna find it difficult to piggyback on both of y'all's answers because they were so good. But it truly boils down to my actions towards Ashlyn and then my reactions towards her. And if I am in understanding on how my actions affect her and how my reactions to her will affect her, if I can get that under some sort of control, because we're not going to be perfect, you know, but if I can get that under a moderate control, it is going to be such a boon for our marriage and for our relationship together as we go on.
What's a boon?
A boon is like a good thing, like an encouragement,
Did y'all know what a boon was?
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry. Vocabulary lesson.
Well, you know, Bo, I will share this, that I'm not trying to promote this, but we've all sat through some sessions called Vertical Marriage with Dave and Ann Wilson. Is that their name? Okay.
He
Yeah, I
calls them
usually get them
something
wrong.
different.
Sorry, Dave and Ann. But we've both heard this, and I think you heard it, maybe not. In what you just said, Dave makes a very good point in there. He said, whoever thinks of de-escalating the argument first, just do it.
That's a great point.
It is a great piece of advice, you know, and especially for Ashlyn and I, who are winners. We want to win everything, you know, whatever that endeavor is.
I just can't imagine doing it with laughter like Walker does. I don't know how you would react to that.
It's not a great way to do it.
Sometimes.
It's just to who I am.
I just can't
Sometimes
imagine
it's
if
good.
I tried to de-escalate with laughter how that would. I don't think that would go well with
I don't
you.
know.
Oh,
try it.
and I'll like start like walking up to her and like poking and laughing and just being like, "This is fun. Like this is funny." And
It's
it is.
not.
I don't recommend unless you're really good at it. I don't recommend that course of action.
Now, something you do that does help with de-escalation is when you do get serious and come close and like, I don't like it, but you'll come in to like give me a hug or something like that. And at first I buck up against it. I'm like, no. I don't want to be touched. I don't want to have, like, I don't need you right now. But when I allow that, then I guess that's maybe my I coming out, my yielding. Because then, no, that's the S. No, that's the I.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
I. Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was right. Maybe that's what happens is I yield into that. And so I guess what I'm learning out of this discussion is that we're applying this a lot more than we think we are. Because we love it. We think it's really neat, but sometimes I don't think about these things off the top of my head until we're talking about it like we are right now. And so I feel like we do apply these things, and like God is really using it in big ways.
I feel like I need to tell a story on y'all. So we did the retreat. The retreat's over. Everybody's getting ready to go home.
Oh, yeah.
I walk in the store and I'm going to buy a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. And they're over there having coffee. And I look over and they motion me over and she goes, I'm apologizing to him. And I'm like, what did you do? And she goes, I'm a red. I feel like I should apologize to my husband. And I was like, retreat's over. I don't need to know this. Y'all handle it. But I thought that was impressive that you recognized that early and you were working on it and at a coffee date together. And Walker was over there smiling. I do remember that. And he was like, taking it all in. And so I feel like I needed to tell that story, that y'all have been working on it a long time, and whether you know it or not, I think so.
Yeah, so it's awesome. So we appreciate you guys so much, like teaching us more about it, teaching others about it, and I truly hope that this impacts a lot of people in their marriages, and I think it can.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. Thank you for allowing us to take root in your home once again, and for just entertaining us and hopefully a bunch of other people for an hour and 20
Well,
minutes.
we love you guys.
Well, the table
Yes.
was one of the core values of Marriage Matters, and having dinner together and places of good conversation. So, table talk, there you go.
That's
with
right.
Ashland
Yeah.
and Walker Johnson.
There we go.
Best
Doing the
I-
best we can.
Absolutely.
Well, that is going to wrap it up here. Thank y'all so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, we will have links to everything that we've got in the description below. If you have liked this, please leave a like and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review if you're listening to it on Spotify or anywhere else. Just thank y'all so much, and thank y'all, Luciuses, for being here and just being our friends and asking us to be a part of this with y'all. So thanks so much, and we will see you in the next one.